So I just want to welcome everybody. This is the a presentation by the East County section, and we have our couple board members. We have our president, Marie, on, and we also have Patanisha Davis on, who we're all on the board. So we wanted to do something a little different. I know that MCLEs are starting to kick back in, and a lot of sections are having these MCLEs, but we want to have something that was not just for your practice or for education. I think it's important, we talked about this a lot at our board meeting, it's important that our members also have, you know, take care of their health, their mental health, as well as their physical health. So we wanted to do something that's more, I guess, community building, support. So we had this great idea to get a licensed therapist and have her come on and give us some great tips and just kind of help us deal with some of the stress, because a lot of us are dealing with, I know we are here, we're dealing with homeschooling a bunch of kids. So we have, like, you know, 4 kids here being homeschooled. We have a practice. We're managing our employees still and dealing with employees. We're trying to look at our bank account and make sure we have enough money to survive what's going on. And we're watching the news. So there's a lot, and we're isolated from our family and our friends. So there's a lot that's going on. There's so much packed into this, and being at home, you know, I've been getting a little stir crazy, so I'm sure a lot of you are feeling it too. So we thought that we would have something that gives us tools and helps us deal with COVID-19, coronavirus. So we enlisted the aid of the wonderful, and I was going to give a presentation. I researched her and everything, but, you know, I think that I would like her to give, you know, tell her background a little bit. But we have Cathy. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist. She has been in practice for over 12 years. And I've had a chance to interact with her as a member of BNI. She's a wonderful addition to our BNI group, and she's contributed and added so much to our group. And I know a lot of people are ranting and raving about her. They're working with her, and she's really helping a lot of people in their business and their personal life. And I know that she does specialize in anxiety, trauma, PTSD, depression. And I think I've been feeling all that the past weekend, so I have a lot to unpack. So I think the format of this is we're gonna put everyone on mute right now. And I think that we will have, if you have a question, if you don't want to forget it, you can type it in the chat and we'll bring it up later. So after her presentation, we'll have a chance for you to ask questions directly, or one of the, you know, me or Marie can ask the question to Kelly. And I want you just to kind of enjoy, relax, engage. There will be homework. I'm kidding, there's no homework. No homework, but there will be participation points. So there may be some exercises. So if you don't feel comfortable doing exercises or chanting or, you know, putting things in your bags on your head or whatever she's gonna have us do, you might wanna stop your video. You know, it's okay to turn off the video. Or if not, you know, you can just power through it. Just power through it. So without further ado,
I just wanted to say, I think everyone should mute themselves, because then we don't have, you can control that from your side. And then I think initially, if everybody just turns off their video, that would be great. And then we can flip that back. Everybody can control their own and flip themselves back on later. So that makes it a little easier for everybody to see Kelly too. So,
okay.
Sorry to interrupt, but wanted to make sure we got that housekeeping. And this is also being recorded.
Okay.
That's why Ann makes the big bucks. I don't get all the technical details, so that's wonderful. Thank you, Ann, for that.
Okay, thanks, Michael. All right.
So without further ado, I'm so happy to introduce our presenter today, Cathy.
All right, thank you so much. So as Mike said, I've been doing therapy for over 12 years. I have a private practice located in Pittsburgh, downtown Pittsburgh. If you know the area, it's on Railroad, just like steps away from New Mecca, if you know the area. And as he said, I work with families, couples, individuals. A licensed marriage and family therapist is the title, but with that comes just a whole gamut of different services. I think my favorite thing to work with is anxiety and PTSD, depression, things of that nature. And I enjoy working with families and couples as well, women's issues. And um, so, yeah, let me go ahead and get started. I have prepared this presentation. Mike told me originally it was only going to be about 15 or 20 minutes, but it's good. We have a lot of extra time at the end, so we can do the questions and the answers later. I'm going to ask that maybe you have some paper and a pen to maybe jot some things down as we go through. And I'm also going to be asking you to write a few things. So if you could have that handy, that would be really, really good. Initially, when Mike asked me to do this presentation, we were talking about coping skills and things that we can do to manage during this COVID-19 pandemic. And I think I thought about how I wanted to put this presentation together, and I came to the conclusion that a lot of you probably have already heard or came to the conclusion, okay, I need to go outside, I need to connect with family. And I can certainly review some of those kinds of things at the end, but I wanted to sort of make this presentation a little different and speak about anxiety specifically as it relates to COVID-19 and some practical tips that we can use to manage the anxiety and stress that comes from that. So I guess let me go ahead and just get right into the presentation. Oh, okay, give me a second. Oh, I'm sorry, I was at the end. All right, there you go. That will give somebody anxiety. Okay, so right now I have some definitions up. So I thought this would be good to go ahead and just review the definitions of both stress and anxiety and then sort of explain how they relate to COVID-19. So the definition of anxiety, I know you guys know this already, but sometimes it's good to put things into perspective. So definition of anxiety, a feeling of nervousness or unease, typically about an event or something with an uncertain outcome. So it's the uncertain outcome that really sort of fuels anxiety, not knowing what's going to happen. So symptoms of anxiety usually include increased heart rate, difficulty concentrating, racing thoughts, hypervigilance, difficulty sleeping, and difficulty eating. So I just want to say one of the hallmark signs of anxiety is feeling it in your chest. What happens is our central nervous system really speeds up when we're feeling anxious. And because of that, our heart starts to beat really, really fast. And as our heart is beating fast, we may have shallow breath. It makes it difficult to concentrate. We can't really think clearly. And these are all signs of anxiety. Hypervigilance is sort of scanning the room or scanning your environment, kind of just being on edge and just feeling really restless. So these are all symptoms. And I like to call it your body's alarm system. So your body is sounding off an alarm system because it feels like you're in danger, that something is not going to go well. And so you're scared and you're fearful. Now let's look at the definition of stress. Stress is a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or very demanding circumstances. So a few of the symptoms are headaches, frustration, anger, and feeling overwhelmed. Now, with COVID-19 and everything that is going on with this pandemic, there have been lives that have been lost. People have died. People are dying. People are very sick. And so these things are going to certainly make you feel worried and anxious. It's an outcome that we don't know what's going to happen, right? The schools are closed. Stores are having you to do things differently now. Your favorite store may be closed. It's all so many different uncertainties that have come from this pandemic. And because of that, it creates a tremendous amount of strain and stress on us. So we have now to deal with these demanding circumstances. Some of you may have to now be homeschooling your children. That's a demand that has now been placed on you. For instance, in my business, I had to figure out, how do I go from meeting people in person to now building up this whole like online platform and having a presence and still being able to connect and provide services to people. So that created a demand on me. So I just wanted to sort of put those things into perspective, and we're going to go ahead and move to the next slide now. So COVID-19 amplifies anxiety, essentially. Just the mere fact of us being in this pandemic and us experiencing this, it's going to amplify those symptoms that we just discussed, okay? So fear of the unknown amplifies anxiety, feeling uncertain of outcomes. Like I said, the schools are closing. Am I going to be able to pay my mortgage, right? Many people have lost their jobs. Those are all things that have created uncertainties, and it's all about unknown. I don't know what's going to happen. So anything that comes with an unknown in regards to fear is going to amplify it, kick it up a notch. So I have here an explanation. It says 1 negative thought amplifies anxiety. That 1 turns into 2, and then 4, and then 10 thoughts are all producing very anxious feelings. So it doesn't take much to get anxiety sort of going, to have it to build a momentum. It kind of builds its own momentum all by itself. That's sort of how anxiety is designed. So just having 1 anxious thought is going to kind of kick that assembly line in progress. And before you know it, you're feeling super, super anxious. Okay, so what's the solution? We got to cut the cord on the amplifier, right? So if 1 thought is amplifying the anxiety, we need to cut the cord on that amplifier, that thought. So I have here, anxiety is a normal response. Sometimes unknown or unplanned events will happen. Now, the reason I put this here is because I want to make it clear that we're not always going to be able to control situations or circumstances. Some things are going to be, unfortunately, out of our control. That's sort of just how life is. There's good people and there's, not so good people. There are things that are going to be good that happen to us and things not so good that are going to happen to us. That's just sort of how it is. But we can control how we respond to that feeling. So what I mean by that is there may be things that happen to us and they're going to cause the feeling of anxiety and stress. And those things may be out of our control. But we can control how we choose to go ahead and respond to the feeling that is now that we now are experiencing, that feeling of feeling stress, that feeling of feeling anxiety. So we do have control over that. All right, so how do we get control? We're going to use our power thinking skills. So just to say really quickly, our mind is powerful, and specifically our thoughts are very, very powerful. And as I just was explaining about anxiety, is that it just takes 1 to get that assembly line or that amplifier to go. And so we need to figure out how we're going to cut these thoughts and change them so that we can feel better. So I thought you guys would like this. Put your thoughts on trial, or basically cut the cords to the amplifiers to your anxiety. Now, I didn't just come up with this. This is, if anybody's ever been in therapy or just know therapy language, or if you've ever, if you have a child or somebody who's taken it, CBT, it's cognitive behavioral therapy. is well known for basically challenging your thoughts, specifically your negative thoughts. And it's an evidence-based mode of therapy, and it's what most therapists use, including myself, to be able to get some results that are really going to help people. So this is something that's sort of well known in that world, putting your thoughts on trial. So I have an example of negative thinking that I put here. I'm not going to be able to cope too much longer without having a nervous breakdown. So how do you put your thoughts on trial? You ask yourself, what is the evidence for this thought? What supports this thought? What goes against this thought? Is this thought helpful? How does this thought make me feel? So those are all things that you can do to be able to put that thought on trial. Those are questions that, that you can ask yourself. So let's just say I put this particular thought on trial. What I've come up with is I have been able to survive and make it through other difficulties in the past. I have supports in place now, like family and coping skills. And let's see, my personal strength will carry me through as it always has. So after putting my thoughts on trial, that is something that I can conclude and come up to. Hey, I've been able to make it through tough times in the past. I can certainly make it through this right now. So what I'd like for everybody to do is to take a moment and to identify a negative thought that you've had. It could be in relation to COVID-19, or it could just be a negative thought. Anything that you can come up with is going to be good in order to practice this. So if you could just take a moment and go ahead and identify a negative thought that you've had, and put that thought on trial. So I obviously I can't see everybody, so just go ahead and pull out your piece of paper and do this. Don't spend a lot of time on this, but I just want to sort of give you this idea so that you can have it. If you find yourself struggling with this, because a lot of people do, it's very hard to kind of look at a thought and be objective with it. Think about a loved one. Think about somebody that you love and care about. You know, your child, your niece or your nephew, your mother, your father. Take a moment and think about them. What would you say to them if they were coming at you with this negative thought, right? Usually that can help you to kind of create some space between that emotional, reaction that you're having and kind of bring in your rational mind and be able to objectively think about what to say. So I hope that everybody was able to at least put a thought down and put it on trial. And again, you're just going to ask yourself one of those questions or all of those questions. And I'm going to go ahead and move along now. Hopefully I'm not moving too fast. But if you continue to struggle with putting your thoughts on trial and cutting the cord, you can always be the judge and control the verdict. So I just decided to add this as just a little spin to putting your thoughts on trial. You can be the judge and control the verdict. So being the judge is all about catching the negative thought and just changing it. So after maybe you have put the thought on trial and you've asked yourself some questions, what's the evidence that supports this? What's the evidence that goes against this thought? And you're still struggling, then just go ahead and be the judge and change the verdict. Meaning go ahead and change it from a negative to a positive. Just go ahead and do that. So changing negative thoughts from negatives to positives is called a reframe. That's a clinical term. It's used in the world of psychology. It's called reframe. And what I'd like for you to do is go ahead and take that same negative thought or a different negative thought and just make it into a positive, right? So previously we were putting a thought on trial. What is the evidence that supports it? What is the evidence that goes against it, right? Well, now I want you to take a thought, either that same thought or a different thought, and just change it from a negative to a positive, right? So let me just give you some quick examples. Let's take it outside of COVID-19 language and land. If I feel, let's just say, for instance, I'm unattractive, then changing that from a negative to a positive would be I'm beautiful or I am attractive, right? If I feel like I'm not smart, then changing it would be, I am smart, I'm intelligent, right? So just go ahead and do the opposite. Change it and make it positive. I have an example here. I'm going to get sick and something terrible is going to happen, right? So that's a negative thought, and we need to cut the cord on that. So you're going to go ahead and reframe and change that negative thought into a positive. I am healthy now. Everything is as good as it can be. And I plan to remain healthy by continuing to follow the protocols set forth by the health officials, right? Protocols meaning sanitizing and washing my hands, for the 20 seconds, like they say, right? Wearing my mask when I go out into public. So doing all of these protocols is going to keep me safe, and I'm going to remain healthy. So these two things are ways, putting your thoughts on trial and reframing. These are ways that you can basically cut the cord to the anxiety. We don't want it to continue to grow. We want to cut it down as soon as we can so that it doesn't get out of hand. When we do that, we can feel better. So I hope everybody was able to do that. And if not, there'll be time for question and answer at the end, and I could talk more about this. Okay, let's go ahead and move to the next slide. So I have here, cut the cord on the amplifier with power thinking, turn down the anxiety and stress, and then relax. So I guess this is just kind of a mini segue to kind of just, again, put things more into perspective. Those are the steps. That's how you want to do it. You want to limit that negative talk. And then once you do that, you cut the cord, you're going to turn down the anxiety. And then after you've turned down the anxiety, you want to be able to put yourself in a situation where you can start to feel better. And that would be relaxation. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do a couple of different exercises so that I could give you something very practical to take with you, and hopefully you can adapt it and use it. This particular exercise you can also, share with your family. You can share with children. It's helpful. I actually have a 3-year-old, and I have her to do this. She struggles with holding her breath, but she gets the concept of breathing in and breathing out. So we all know about deep breathing. We all know what deep breathing is. But sometimes we really need a structured way to do the deep breathing in order to make it effective. And so we talked earlier, I don't know if you remember, in the very first beginning slides, I talked about anxiety as being your body's alarm system. It's sounding the alarm system that something's not right. Well, I thought it'd be fun to say, well, let's figure out how we can turn that alarm system off. And usually, with your house or different places, there might be a code that you need to punch in to put in on that alarm system to turn it off, right? So I have the magic code of 3333. And that code relates to this deep breathing exercise that we're going to go ahead and do. So I'm going to explain it, and then I'm going to ask for you guys to get ready to try this out. So essentially what you're going to do is you're going to inhale for a count of 3. You're going to hold that breath for a count of 3, and then you're going to exhale for a count of 3. And you want to at least repeat it 3 times so that it can be effective. Because, I'll tell people, okay, make sure you do some deep breathing. And it's just, if you go 1 and then that's it. Yes, it will help, but it could be so much more effective if you had a rhythm to it and you were able to do it effectively by following this protocol. So what I'd like for everybody to do is go ahead and make sure wherever you're sitting at that you're nice and comfortable. And go ahead and make sure that your back is really upright as it can be. And I want you to place your palms facing upward like this. If you can see that, go ahead and place them upwards on your lap. And I want you to, you can either close your eyes or you can leave your eyes open. And it all depends on, I guess, what you feel the most comfortable with. Okay. And we are going to try and do, this deep breathing exercise. So what I'd like for you to do is I want you to imagine the breath is kind of filling up your air chamber as you inhale. Okay, so imagine that breath. Go ahead and close your eyes, open them, and we're going to start right now. Imagine that breath going up. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now I want you to hold for 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3, and then you're going to exhale. 1, 2, 3. All right. Very good job with that. I think obviously we know how to do this, but again, when there's a protocol or a certain specific way that we need to do things, we can we see the effects that we want to see. So let's go ahead and try that again. I'm going to start to count. Get in your comfortable position. Imagine that breath going up. 1, 2, 3. And hold. 1, 2, 3, and relax. I'm sorry, exhale. 1, 2, 3. All right, excellent job. And we're going to do this one more time. All right, imagine that breath going up. 1, 2, 3. You want to hold for a count of 3. 1, 2, 3. And then you want to exhale for a count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so again, go ahead and open your eyes and kind of shake it off. Hopefully that was able to give you kind of a tiny bit of a relaxed feeling. You can obviously do it more than 3 times, but you at least want to do it for a minimum of 3 times, okay? And we're going to go ahead and move on to the next skill here, and it's called progressive muscle relaxation. So the whole point behind this is if you've ever worked out, or let's just say like lifting heavy weights, or maybe the weight doesn't even have to be heavy, but you have done it now for 20 times and you're on your 21st time and it's a real strain to go up and your arms are shaking. This is the feeling of your muscles sort of tensing. And then when you finally finish that last repetition, you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy that that's done. And I feel my muscles feel very relieved. So there's been some research that says that you going ahead and tensing your muscles and creating that pressure, kind of coalescing that tension into one space and then releasing it, creates a feeling of relaxation. Now, typically, the way that you would do this is you would start from your feet and work yourself all the way up to your head. But we're not going to do all of our body parts today. We're just going to do a few so that you can gain an understanding of how this works, okay? So I would like for us to bring your attention to your feet. And what you want to do is wiggle your toes. So just wiggle your toes. It doesn't matter if you have shoes on. If you have shoes off, that's even better. Just wiggle your toes. All right. So now you notice them. You've brought them into your awareness. And what I want you to do now is I want you to squeeze your toes. I know this is kind of funny, but just squeeze your toes really, really tightly, as tight as you can. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And I'm going to count to 7. 1, 2, squeeze them really, really tightly. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and release. You want to release very slowly, very slowly. Now, if you're having difficulty with this for whatever reason, that's okay. The thing about figuring out coping skills and things that are going to work for us is you have to try things out, and not everything works for everybody. Maybe you're more of a breather. Maybe this isn't going to work. Maybe the breathing didn't really kind of catch your eye, and maybe this does. So it's all right. If it's not working for you, or you're not really feeling it, that's okay. But I always tell people, give it a try. So that was squeezing your toes. Now we're going to go ahead and let's just bring it up a little bit, and we're just going to make a fist. Just squeeze your fist. And you're going to squeeze really, really hard. And I'm going to count to 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I want you to just sort of release slowly. Now, hopefully you're feeling some tingling as you're releasing. And that hand and that foot feels a little better, because what we did is we got all that blood to constrict in one area. Now we're releasing it, and just by default it's going to feel good. All right, so one last time, we're going to do now with our arms. So just go ahead and let me see you do, I can't see you, but go ahead and make a fist with your arm, and flex that muscle, just like you would if you were to be arm wrestling. And just go ahead and flex that muscle. And I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and release. And drop that arm down. And just allow yourself to feel relaxed. You can imagine that if you were to do this from your toes, and you work your way up, so you say your calf muscles, your thigh muscles, your buttocks, right, all the way up to even your face, where you would scrunch your face up and look really crazy and just scrunch it up really, really tightly. You can see how that can release tension and help your whole body to feel very much so relaxed. So great job with that. I hope you were able to do that. And again, there'll be more time for questioning, and at the end, we're almost sort of finished with the presentation. So good job. All right, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So you want to create a positivity space, a positive space. I'm sorry, creating a positive space. So it's very important that with anxiety and with stress, that you're able to that you're able to I'm hearing some okay, that you're able to stay in a place where you can be positive. It's very difficult, given everything that we've gone through, to sometimes think about something that's positive, or to stay in a place where we can remain positive with so much tragedy and heartache around us. But it's very, very important when we are trying to manage anxiety and stress, and just very negative things going on around us. So I wanted to talk about mindfulness and focusing on the now. So when you're able to focus on the now, you're able to basically shift your attention from whatever it is that may be causing you stress or stressing you at the moment. if you recall, anxiety is all about fear of the unknown, worried about something that we have no control over, worried about the outcomes of some future thing that we have actually no idea what's going to happen to the future. So it's very important that we're able to shift that focus back to the now. And you do that by being mindful. A good way to be mindful is to sort of, be outside. I always tell my clients, if you can go outside and take a walk, right? Just to sort of get a new scenery, especially when you're toggling with something on your mind or you're feeling really stressed in a certain environment. But sometimes we're not always able to do that. We're not always able to take a walk because the demands are too much, right? So then I say, all right, well then step outside. At least just get outside and get some fresh air. And if you feel like you can't even do that at the moment, you can go over to the window and you can look out the window. And sometimes we're not even able to do that depending on the situation and what's going on. So you can do mindfulness from wherever you're at. And we're going to do a quick little thing right here and right now. So wherever you are, I just want you to draw your attention into the room that you're in. And I want you to focus on, what do you see? So just take a look around the room and just focus on what you see. And after you've done that for a while, I want you to take a moment and focus on, what do you hear, right? Maybe you hear some sounds in your home. Maybe you hear your children. Maybe you hear other people talking. Maybe you hear cars going by. Maybe you hear nature, right? Sounds coming from your computer, maybe your phone. But what do you hear? And then go ahead and focus on, what do you smell? So is there anything that you smell at this current time? Draw your attention to your nose. Do you smell anything, right? What kind of smells are in the room? And then what do you feel? So do you feel warm? Are you cold? I guess I was referring to temperature wise here, but you can also focus on how you feel, what your emotion is also. But that's a good way to bring it into the now. So you focus on the now, and you can do this anywhere. You don't need to take a walk. You don't need to be anywhere special. You can do it anywhere, and it'll help to, again, reshift your focus to the now. And hopefully with the now, you can then get some clarity and maybe start to think better and just feel more control over your current environment. Okay. All right. So moving on to the next slide. Thank you and appreciation. So I want to say thank you to Michael and Patanisha for inviting me here. I appreciate it. And I want to sort of highlight some things for myself, things that I guess that come up for me during this COVID-19. The ability to be home with my family is something that I appreciate. More time to work on projects that I've been putting off, and more time to rest, right? So those things are very important to try and get yourself into a space of gratitude, right? Because I talked about creating this positive circle for yourself. So ask yourself, what is it that you're grateful for right now at this moment? And maybe write that down. What is it that you're grateful for? I always tell my clients, you can start the day off in gratitude and end the day off in gratitude. I'm sure many of you have probably heard of gratitude journals. But it's very important to just kind of maintain that positivity bubble. And especially in the midst of everything that we're dealing with right now, to ask yourself what you're grateful for. Is there any positives to what I am experiencing? And again, I know that can be really, really tough given what we have all witnessed, and what we have all been through. But it's a very important thing to do in order to shift, again, your focus and try and be positive, and with so much negativity and sadness and anxiety and stress going on. So what are you grateful for? And let's just go ahead and review really quickly what we did today. So we talked about anxiety and stress, what amplifies it, right? So just one negative thought amplifies it. It's about fear of the unknown and uncertainty about how we're going to manage. Cutting the cords, right, to the amplifier. You can do that by putting your thoughts on trial, which is kind of pulling from your rational thinking and sort of being the judge, just doing the reframes. You control the outcome. You go ahead and change that negative thought into something positive, right? We did some relaxation, some deep breathing. I said silence the alarm with code 3333, which was breathing in for 3 seconds, holding it for 3 seconds, exhaling for a count of 3, and then doing that at least 3 times. We did some progressive muscle relaxation, which is tensing your muscles and then releasing them in order to get a feeling of relaxation. And then we talked about this positivity circulation, right? So staying in gratitude and doing some mini mindfulness in order to bring yourself back to the now and regroup and not be in the future worried, but just right now, staying focused on what's in front of you and being grateful for what you do have. Okay, that concludes my presentation. And again, I thank you for having me here, and I hope that you were able to get something from it. As I said, I wanted to do something a little different, but because we have much more time, or any questions that you may have, and any questions that you had about anything that I discussed, as well as some of those other things that you may have questions about in regards to managing households and all of that kind of stuff. So thank you.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank you so much, Kelly, for agreeing to do this and spending your time with us and sharing with us. And I really appreciate how you tied that into the clown thing. That was wonderful. I love that. That was amazing. That was great. May have a niche here, counseling attorneys, if you can keep making those connections. I'm going to be really selfish since I have control of the mic right now.
Yeah.
How do you deal with lately I've been having this feeling of lack of like I have my family here, but lack of contact with the outside world. Like, you know, even when I'm out shopping, that it's like, stay away, get away. I'm not relating or interacting with you. And I'm kind of an extrovert. I like interacting with people and doing that. So what are ways that can help us cope with just, I'm feeling the isolation right now?
Right. So that's a very good question. Yeah, that's a very good question. So like, you know how right now we're on the Zoom call, right? And it's a much more intimate way, right, of us communicating versus just being on the telephone. So what I have instructed to a lot of my clients is try and hold family Zoom calls, do a family Zoom meeting, connect with your family. A lot of times we're worried about aunts and uncles or grandmother, you know, and just try and get everybody on a family Zoom call. I do it every week with my family. It's amazing, right? But at the same time, you can still go out, right? You can still go out and you can see other people, but you can't really interact with them. But it may help you from kind of going stir crazy if you can just sort of get out. And, you know, I like to walk a trail behind my home and I see lots of other people. I'm not interacting so closely with them, but it does help with some of those feelings.
Okay. I know Vanessa had a question.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. I just have a technique question.
Yes.
When you are doing breathing exercises like the code 333.
Yeah.
What's the difference between when you're exhaling, if you're breathing out of your nose or your mouth, and then which one were we supposed to be doing on this exercise?
Oh, you know what? I didn't really specify that. That's a good question. I think to keep it simple, it's okay. Either if you breathe through your nose or your mouth, it's really okay. I don't want people to get too caught up on which way you should be breathing, just doing it. Because a lot of times we just don't, right? If I had to pick though, I would say you want to exhale through your mouth. If I were to pick. But don't get too caught up on that. Just go ahead and do it. Because a lot of times we will know that we need to do some deep breathing and we just don't do it. We just don't do it. So if you can commit to doing it 3 times in the way that we discussed, it should be somewhat effective for you.
Thank you.
So I had a question.
Yes.
I love how you gave us all these tools that we can use for ourselves.
Yes.
We're having these negative thoughts or anxiety and all that, but what would you suggest we do when we're dealing with either a family member or a coworker and that is experiencing anxiety and these negative thoughts, and it's starting to affect you?
Right. That's a good question. So you want to, so sometimes, and I have to do this myself, I want to be able to help people, right? I want to be able to provide support to them, but it can take a toll on you. So you need to have very good boundaries with yourself, right? So you need to say, okay, I'm going to provide support. I'm going to give everything that I can, and then I'm going to have to emotionally somehow remove myself, right? So that may mean that, you listen, but maybe you don't always continue to offer advice, right? But you create some distance for yourself and you notice that, hey, this is starting to really take a toll on me. And when that happens, you want to do something fun, do something that can kind of shift your mood back to being positive, right? So a lot of times after I meet with clients, I will maybe just turn on some relaxing music, right? Because it's just like, oh, that was really tough trying to get them to, figure out how to put that thought on trial, or, trying to get them to do that technique. So I will have to put on some music, or I will purposely say, I'm going to take a walk when I return home tonight, or I'm going to get on the treadmill. I purposely do something to kind of get that tension off of me and reshift my focus.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Kelly. I enjoyed the presentation. I'm sorry about the interruption.
Oh, no worries. I couldn't see anything. So
I enjoyed going through the techniques. It's been very relaxing. And I've been working on my own since this pandemic on learning more breath work techniques. And I've done something similar in the box, doing it, extending the 3 seconds. Yes. I've also found resources online, but a lot of them are asking for some pretty hefty memberships. And so when resources are tight, do you have any suggestions for maybe low cost or free online tools to expand the breath work? Because I really like that. Or any type of mindfulness or technique that might help us cope during this pandemic.
Yes, I'm going to send a list of resources over to Michael, and then he can disperse them to you guys. So I'll send some worksheets on deep breathing, the progressive muscle relaxation, and also I found like a children's book, just a electronic children's book on coping with COVID. So I'll send that.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, yes, I'm gonna send that over. You're welcome.
So I have a question and I sent over to you privately in the chat.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Let me see if I can see.
That's okay. I will repeat it for everybody's benefit. So I'm very grateful for this time to be with my family and to work on the projects and whatnot. But I have this intense pangs of guilt for not being at work and working on my whatever files.
Yes.
And that has been the case, but typically there was a Monday when I could go back, and then when I was at work, I was feeling, the intense pangs of guilt for not being as tidy mom as I should be to my kids. So
Yes.
how do I kind of mute that voice, the self-critical
Yes, that's
grandma sitting on my shoulder, because it comes in all the time.
Yes, that's an excellent question. I think a lot of people do feel really guilty, and are really struggling, especially with trying to adjust to this whole pandemic, right? And so what I tell people is we are not in the midst of normal circumstances. So what's happening is not normal. So that means that you shouldn't hold yourself to an expectation where you should be functioning as normal, right? So I guess another way to put that is you need to be kind to yourself, right? Feeling guilty and sort of blaming yourself for not being there is not helpful. We are in the midst of very trying times right now, and so your expectations and what you were doing before with your work, and even as a mother, is very different now, right? So you have to adjust those expectations so that you can then feel a sense of accomplishment. So what I tell people is, let's just say for home, doing things at home, like being able to, get the laundry done and the dishes and the house, and everybody's home, so the house is more, getting cluttered and stuff like that, right? Um, what you want to do is you want to set up some realistic expectations for yourself, given the situation, okay? Um, so everybody still hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm sorry. I didn't know if I froze for a minute. You want to set up some realistic expectations. The single most thing that is going to help you to feel good about yourself and just feel good about this, what we're experiencing, is being able to accomplish something. So when we have these unrealistic expectations of, I'm not getting this work done, I'm not doing the laundry, the house is a mess, we're adding that burden and stress and strain to ourselves. We need to readjust what our expectations are, and make them realistic, make them fit this pandemic, right? This is extreme stress and anxiety, so we need to adjust those expectations. So if you are used to having your kitchen clean every day, I hate to say it, and some people may not like it, but you might have to go a day or two without your kitchen being cleaned. You're gonna have
Amen, sister. Amen.
you're going to you're going to have to adjust your expectations to what is realistic, okay? And you don't want to boggle yourself down with these feelings of guilt. Same thing with, oh, I need to be, I'm taking all this time away from my children because I'm working. Well, then take some time and, be with them, but also be kind to yourself. Understand, hey, I'm working and trying to do this, right? So these aren't normal circumstances. So I think if you shift your way of thinking, and come up with some realistic expectations for yourself. So instead of, let's just say, doing the dishes 5 days a week, you want to pick another number, 3. So my goal for this week is to make sure the kitchen is clean 3 times this week. And then when you do it, you're going to feel really, really good. That's going to empower you, and that's going to help you to foster these very positive feelings. But when we have this expectation of, my kitchen needs to be cleaned every day, and then every day you're not able to meet that goal, then that is what brings on the guilt and the shame and those negative feelings. So to answer your question in a nutshell, I would say shift your expectations and have them to be very realistic. Yes, and Patsunisha, I love your comment. Yes, you are more than enough. Yes, you're certainly more than enough. And that also brings me to one of the things that I was going to include on the resource sheet is saying positive statements. So we talked about, like, putting your thoughts on trial and then just reframing it, just shifting from that negative to positive. But you can say these positive statements to yourself about sort of anything to help uplift you in this time. And I usually tell people, put your positive statements in a place where you can see it, a place where you frequent. like maybe your bathroom mirror or someplace in your bedroom or right near your door in your kitchen, and have these statements that are going to motivate you, right? So I am more than enough, right? I'm always more than enough, right? I have the ability to accomplish what I need to. I have supports in place, right? I'm doing a fantastic job, right? I'm a wonderful mother. I'm a wonderful father, right? These are things that we need to hear. And sometimes we don't always hear them from loved ones just because they're busy and they're dealing with their own stuff. But that doesn't mean that, you know, it's not true. So we have to be our own motivator. We have to say these things to ourselves. And a perfect way that you can do that is by saying these positive statements, or having them pinned up somewhere that you can read on a daily basis.
You know, you mentioned, oh, sorry, go ahead, Michael.
I have a question about the kids.
Yes.
I know our teenager really suffers from not having contact with his friends because he's always with his friends. And now he's around a bunch of little kids and some adults. So he's not getting that peer support.
Yeah.
And even the younger kids are not even questioning, are we ever going to get to play with our friends again? Like that kind of thing. So
Yes.
are there things that we can do to help the kids with this?
Yeah, you know, I would, so what I would do is I would sort of normalize what they're feeling. So sometimes when we're feeling overwhelmed ourselves or things are happening, we don't exactly know how to respond, right? So normalize it, like, you know, get on their level and say, yes, we're experiencing this thing, it's not great, but I want you to know that things are going to get better. You're not alone, everybody is feeling this, right? So that's what I mean by normalize. Let them know that this isn't just exclusive to them. Everybody is feeling this, and we're going to get out of this together. And explain to them that we've had to make some shifts in how we are relating, right? That now for whatever reason, this is the new normal, but we'll get out of this. We're going to get out of this together. So just kind of reassure them that things are going to be okay, but normalize it. Tell them that, hey, things are okay. We're going to get through this, and kind of be their cheerleader. Because sometimes they just need that, right? Also, what you may want to do is try just having, I said, talked about the Zoom family meetings, but your own personal household, like family meetings, where you create a space for people, for your children to talk about how they're feeling, right? So, you know, it's something very informal, but you can sit around, you know, hey, let's talk about this whole pandemic, right? Let's talk about what's going on. How are you feeling? And just create that space to offer support. Because a lot of times children are thinking things and they don't come to us with those thoughts or with those feelings, but they may act them out, or, you know, they may show it in different ways. So create that safe place for them to be able to bring those concerns or thoughts or worries to you, so that you can address them sort of head on. So I hope that was helpful, Michael.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm
So
sorry.
I had a question about,
Yeah.
Because I have two adult sons.
Yes.
One is home with us from college, and it's great. And he actually the other day said he was happy to be spending this time home with me and with his father, and so that was nice to hear. That was that made me feel really good.
Yes.
But my other son is in Denver, and I don't hear from him very much. And it's awkward because, he's at that young adult stage where, you don't want to be prying,
Right. Right.
He has a girlfriend that he lives with, so he's not alone. But and he's actually working very hard because he's an essential worker. He's in the medical field. So I'm trying not to pry, but I also feel like, as a parent, especially now, I feel like I need that contact. So how would you deal with, sort of dealing with children that are older that, but that you still feel as a parent that you feel, especially now, you want to make sure that you know what's going on.
Yeah, I would say whenever you have that feeling, or you're, feeling worried, or you just want to know how your son is doing, I would say reach out. The thing about, our feelings, and especially anxiety or stress, as it relates to somebody else is when we get that feeling, we should act on it. So if it's, hey, I'm wondering how my son is doing, then maybe send him a text, right? Or call him. You can also, some of these resources that I'm sending, maybe send them some resources, right? But go ahead and address it right then and there. A lot of times we will, you know, like I said, the anxiety grows and grows, right? So we got to cut the cord on the amplifier. So just handle it, do some action right then and there. And that'll alleviate you, and you'll feel good that you reached out, because we'll ruminate in our mind about, I wonder how this person is doing. I hope they're okay. But then, like, after, a lot of times with my clients, I'll drill down and say, well, what have you done? What action steps have you done at all? And it's like, well, nothing, but I'm really worried about him. Okay, then reach out, you know? So I say, just take the action. It'll alleviate you. Chances are your son will respond, you know, through text message, and at least you'll get that brief moment of communication, and hopefully you'll feel, you know, you'll feel a little better in that moment.
Yeah, it's tough because he works in a doctor's office, and that stresses me, you know.
Yes.
What's going on. So it's almost like I feel like I have to know every day, and I don't want it, but I don't want to be like that helicopter that is, you know, hovering over him kind of thing.
Right. Yes. No, I understand. I think in these times, it's we're experiencing something that we haven't ever felt, right? So if you're going to be kind of a little bit of a helicopter parent, that's okay. We're in a crisis, you know. Like, I think it's okay. And I think your son or your daughter, your children will appreciate you reaching out, even if they don't respond, because we know how kids and teenagers can be, and even young adults. But I think you have every right as a mother to feel worried and be concerned. And what I say is act on that, because that will help decrease that feeling of anxiety in you. And so you're not sort of carrying that around with you throughout the day or the weeks, right? You can always send stuff in the mail too, if you want.
Yeah. I didn't think of that, but yeah, I could send him a little care package.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, send things in the mail. I think that's you know, we're talking about an old school way of connecting, right? But sending things in the mail or writing a little note, you know, doing things differently, but in connecting, right? It feels you're gonna feel that heart warmth connection when you open up a letter or you get a card from somebody in the mail, right? That's very personable. So like you say, a care package, that's very personable. Those are things that you can do as well. Any other questions?
There was one from Jonathan at the bottom of the chat.
Okay.
He's muted and his video, but you can still answer. I think he can hear you.
Okay. Because my wife and daughters are in the same room and not respecting my need for peace. It's causing anxiety. You know what? Maybe you can try and breathe. Close your eyes, create that positivity bubble, right? You know what? It's very hard to work at home. You're absolutely right, when people are here. And I have felt that, you know, I'm trying to do therapy sessions and like kids are running. I'm like, be quiet, you know, so it's absolutely hard, you know. We didn't talk about this, but so hopefully everybody's been able to create some sort of schedule. But again, you know, these are trying times. Be patient and kind to yourself. But if you could have some sort of structure for your family, right? Structure equates to safety. You know, if we have some sort of structure or guideline, get up, this is what I want you to do, work on your work, and then take a break, and then we're going to eat lunch, and right. So having some set structure is going to help you to be able to do your work, but then also create that space and distance, right? So hey, I have a call coming up, or I'm going to be on a meeting. I need for you guys to be working on your homework during that time. And then afterwards, we'll check in, you know. So I don't know, Jonathan, if you're able to maybe after this sort of come up with some sort of structure in order to be able to give yourself some space. But in the midst of that, when that's not happening and everybody is in the same room, You can always tune out, you know, with your earphones, music, depending on what kind of work you're trying to do. But honestly, try the deep breathing. Try to recenter yourself. You know, close your eyes or open your eyes. Try some of the progressive muscle relaxation. Try to do some of those things to kind of ease the tension, right? But it's difficult, you know, and sometimes you just have to do the best that you can, right? And again, be your cheerleader. Make sure that you're giving yourself lots of encouragement, and you're saying great job to yourself. We need that. We all need that kind of encouragement. And like I said, we don't always get it from family members, not because they don't care, but like I said, they're dealing with their own stuff. So you need to say it to yourself. Be your own cheerleader and continue to give yourself lots of positive encouragement. These are really, really tough times. So we have to be kind to ourselves.
Okay. And I want to respect you. Oh,
I just was going to say thank you to Kelly. I really appreciate the creation of structure. It's really helped us. We have 4 children here, and 3 of them are really needing, they're under 5th grade and 2nd grade. And so they need a lot of coaching with the homeschooling. And so I found that the structure, creating family time, creating a school time when school ends, mommy's work time, and being very clear and very intentional has been extremely healthy. But what has been also very healthy is unplugging from media and news and constant, too much information sometimes can be frightening. So choosing how much you want to review, or just a quick notification, and then unplugging from that, it has been extremely helpful for me.
Yes. Thank you for mentioning that, Patanisha. I was going to include that on the tip sheet that I sent. Is you want to really limit your news, you know, where you're getting your news from and the amount of time that you're spending on that. Because they are just looping anxiety. It's just like it's on a loop over and over and over again. You are not going to feel relaxed in any shape, form, or fashion, you know, getting the news. What I say to people is turn it on, tune in, get any new information that you need, you know, and then turn it off and be done with it, because keeping it on for hours at a time is not going to help. So you really want to limit it to really no more than an hour or 2, you know, per day, and that's it. So yeah, very, very good advice, Patanisha.
and I really want to respect your time. If you have to get off the call, I know we're
thank you.
Thank you.
1:12. I want to respect your time, and I will provide your information to anyone, and I'll pass on whatever you have.
Yes, I'll be sending out the tip sheet later today for you.
Okay, and we can continue discussion. You know, after, you know, I just, like I said, I want to respect her time, Kelly's time. But we can continue the conversation about what we're doing. Maybe share a little bit with each other, or if you guys want to stick around, or we can end the call. So I just want to thank Kelly again for her participation and her time, and thank you so much. It was amazing. Thank you.
Bye. I'll stay on the call, Michael.